rather. Okay. I'm just waiting to see if this is a good time. Oh, we got some people coming in. The missing. Hello. Figured I'd let this get charged up. Most of the time I start a little too early and then people wonder what's going on. Good morning. Good morning. You can tell what kind of frame of mind I'm in. Good evening, everyone. As you come in, I have not notified anybody I was going to do this, so I may not have any mods here. Invariably, the notifications don't always work, but we'll see what happens. Regardless, that's okay. Mrs. Cat, you're here. Thank you for being here. So, it's been a while since I've been on for reasons that most of you know. And the only things that I've been putting up on YouTube are basically Nancy Morgan Hart's Headlines with a Voice stories that I thought were apropos and important for everyone to know about. I haven't done any other live streams or anything, as you know. And I wasn't really ready to do this one. I'm really not ready to go forward yet. And I'll talk about that in a minute. But at any rate, I have been posting on Twitter quite a bit, mainly because I'm so upset with Trump supporters that here's a guy who couldn't get it done the first term that he had, and they think that he's going to pull some miracle if he gets back in there. And of course, I'm not impressed with that at all. Uh, Also, I wasn't really going to announce this, but Dave Hodges of the Common Sense Show asked me to come on his show tomorrow evening. It'll be 5 p.m. Pacific time. Now, I don't know that that's his normal Common Sense show that he puts on YouTube. I think it's his other show that then he posts later. I can't tell you which it is because I really wasn't up to getting all the details. Like I said, I'm still not quite back to normal, if I ever will be back to normal on this one. Yeah, that's right, Jenny Sanders. And that's not a good sign. It's not a good sign at all. Anybody who's followed me knows I'm very concerned about that. So, anyway, I thought I owed everybody a little explanation. Of course, you know why I haven't been doing live streams or really any uploads of any significance. But I felt that it was probably a good idea to make the effort tonight. So it'll be a week tomorrow since Bettina died from a sudden onset of spinal cancer that apparently also went to her brain. It was very, very fast. And of course, you all know her as Nancy Morgan Hart of Headlines with a Voice. And she was a very, very dear friend of mine. The most remarkable woman I think I have ever known, bar none, actually. So even now, I'm going to get choked up if I'm not careful. And I promised myself I wasn't going to do that if I did a live stream tonight. But I'm still working through that. And I talked to Felicia Lockhart, her best friend, who also put up the tribute to Bettina. And, Felicia reminded me that Roy, Bettina would want you to get back in the saddle and get started again. You know, she would be on your case. And absolutely, that's true. I know Bettina quite well. And yes, she would definitely be on my case for having been off this long. Thanks, Ms. Cat. Yeah, she would. And another thing that Felicia said that was very important to me, uh, Felicia knows her Bible, her scriptures, and I'm yeah, Kurt, I know. But Felicia reminded me that, Roy, God gives you a morning time, and it depends on your circumstances, but basically it's 30 days. give or take. And it is scriptural about mourning, and then you've really got to get on with things. Uh, I'm not sure that's going to be applicable in my case for reasons that are kind of hard, I can't really explain here. Um, but uh, I think mine's going to take a little longer than that, maybe substantially longer. And I'm really not sure, as I've often said, how significant my efforts have been. We see the country plummeting. Basically, all the engines now have caught on fire, and we're coasting, and we're about ready to take a nosedive into the dirt. And nobody's really up there to fix it. Nobody is. I've warned about the general officers, the flag officers for years. I've warned about the intelligence community for years. As most of you know, the motto on my channel is that the intel community is our most dangerous domestic enemy, and that includes the FBI. Um, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time here rehashing all that. You all should know the difficulties. I've been talking about it for a long time. General Milley, the Fred Flintstone. Actually, that's an insult to Fred Flintstone. The Fred Flintstone, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, four-star general who's only there. I know he was a Green Beret. People say, "Oh, don't denigrate his service." Well, they denigrate anybody else's they don't like, so to hell with him. But this whole thing with the CRT, of course, I'm not going to state it outright, is absurd, and all it is going to do is divide the country up even more. People are going to be getting very defensive, and yeah, I'm going to talk about YouTube is highly surveilled now. Yeah, yeah. As a matter of fact, I'm going to tell you something about when I first came on here, okay? Because they've changed some things already. I'll get to that in a minute. And if I forget, remind me to tell you about the new YouTube procedure you go through to get on live stream, at least on the phone. So Millie is typical of what our four-star generals are actually our entire DoD structure from '06 up is now, and it's even they're even working to get the woke folks throughout the entire thing, and of course toss out the constitutionalists, conservatives, and the people that look like me. Put them on the line. This is all designed, as I explained, back in the 1800s to get ready for a massive takedown of America. China would be involved. I've talked about it before, somewhat in veiled terms, but I've said that we'd have problems with China, and they planned on it as early as the 1840s, 50s. The type of civil unrest that we're going to have, we've been experiencing, it's going to get worse. It's going to get so bad that there will be blood in the streets. You will have to kill or be killed. That's where this is going, and it's going to be very bad. It's going to be very bad. Of course, the entire um, procedural thing that's going on with trying to take care of our health has totally devastated most of the Western world and some other places as well. It's all designed to basically initiate what you all know as the RESET, and also they're going to start shutting us down if not for that particular um, health situation, quote unquote. It isn't one, but that they're also going to start using problems with CO2, etc., to shut down major places and frequently. The, and again, I didn't know that they would use the CO2 thing because what's surprising is most people don't even know what CO2 is. It's amazing to me. I have a family member who has a science degree, and we got into that, and I had to explain that CO2 is something that's in the respiration of plants, not just human beings. The plants breathe in CO2 and breathe out oxygen. We breathe in oxygen, breathe out CO2, and they went, oh, oh, oh. I said, yeah. our educational system has, even the intelligent people that are in it, the education system has really dumbed down people into accepting whatever they're told by people in positions of authority. By the way, is this 5 by 5? I think it is. Maybe you could just let me know. Um, okay, so General Milley has proven that, as I've said for a long time, that the DoD has been captured. Thank you for letting me know it's 5 by 5, everybody. DoD has been captured, and it's been that way for a long time. I started warning about this many, many years ago, and a lot of people, especially certain military people, would attack me for saying it, and here we are. Well, I can't help the low volume, Mars Fugel. That's I've talked about that before. Okay, I can't help it. My phone does not have a volume control on it, and that's just the way it is. So, and I really don't feel like talking louder. Sorry, I just don't. So maybe I shouldn't do this. Do you want me to go away, Mars Fugel? I don't mind. I've already really said my piece. I wanted to let you know that this thing with Nancy Morgan Hart, Bettina, is still affecting me, and it probably will for some time. I don't mean to leave you all in the lurch, but it's just, I'm just not real up to it. Okay, I'm really not. Uh, you see somebody put their heart and soul into something, and then for this to happen to them, and I'm not going to say what caused it or anything like that. I'm just going to say that, and we can't let these kind of setbacks stop us from speaking out and holding our government officials and et cetera accountable, but holding them accountable without an enforcement arm to go after them isn't going to be a lot of good. You see all of the demonstrations that are going on in Europe and Britain, et cetera, and demonstrations don't cut it. They just don't cut it. And Bettina, Nancy Morgan Hart, knew that. She said, if the young men in this nation aren't willing to get the balls to do something about this, the country is over with. And she's right, as she was right about so many things. So the DoD is captured. The intelligence community has long been captured, and I include the DoD as part of that IC. I always have. Of course, the FBI and all these things, and they're coming. They're coming for Americans. As I've explained, all of these wars over the last 40 years have been to test how to use the different tactics, psychology, psychological warfare, et cetera, so that they could turn it on the American people, and we are at that point now. And no, Trump is not a savior. Liza Jean, thank you for being here. Thank you very, very much. Trump is not the savior. He actually sent us down this road faster than even Obama did. And here we are. And now everybody and then the Trump circles are clamoring for him to come in and save them. And again, I'm fed up with Alex Jones for the same reason. Uh, but that's old news, and you all know that. So anyway, that's where we are. I could talk about the dangers in the Middle East. I've been keeping track of that to some extent. Again, I'm going to be on Dave Hodges' Common Sense Show tonight. I don't know if it's his YouTube channel or his other podcast. I really don't know. Maybe you all can find out. I'm not really going to take the time. He's just going to call me tomorrow, and I'm going to do the show. And he wants to talk about basically where I think we are right now. And basically, I told him, I texted him back, and I said, just what I told you here a few minutes ago. The engines are out, and we're going down. And nothing's going to pull it back up, not at this point. The states are going to have to reorganize themselves and take on the feds, and most of them aren't up to that. I'm sorry, they're not. So here we are. The other thing I wanted to bring up is that you moderate for Dave Watchman. Oh, thank you. Maybe you could inform us here, because I really don't know what it's going to be on tomorrow. Maybe you don't know either. And I should have found out, but like I said, I'm just not up to par yet, and I can't really explain why. but I'll admit this to you. When I lost Carol, my wife, in 2008 to ovarian cancer, the grief and the suffering I went through then, uh, this is this is exactly like it, exactly like it. Uh, why? I mean, you wouldn't think it would be, but it is. So I'll just leave it at there. And the only other thing I was going to cover tonight is that, yeah, prayers for her husband, of the whole family, anybody that knew her, really. I mean, really knew her. Felicia, for instance, and there are some others who really knew her, and I know they're all hurting. I know they are. I know Felicia in particular cried night after night after night, um, not being able to believe that this would happen like this. So, at any rate, enough on that for right now. Is Felicia here? Is, is she here? I didn't see her come on. Of course, you know I have a hard time talking, and I have a hard time talking and chewing gum and walking all at the same time. Oh, there she is. You are here. Hi, hi, my friend. I know I didn't tell you I was going to be on here. It's late where you are, and I just thought I'd better come on and explain to people why, and most people know why I'm not doing much right now. I mean, I've said everything that can be said. You go back and you look at Bettina's, Nancy Morgan Hart's Headlines with a Voice, all her stories, all of that is applicable. So a lot of the times, all I'm doing is repeating myself with new events, but the same basic standard operating procedure of these traders and these people that are trying to destroy the human race, and that's really what this is about. It really, really is. And in that vein, um, and people are going to say, "Oh no, we're not getting back on that again." Oh, thanks, Felicia. Thank you. Um, but again, I bring it up because that is what I'm going to talk about is in fact the main attack against us, and it has been for some time, and that is attacking the man-woman relationship, human sexuality, degrading it, altering it. You know, there's a scripture that says, and the evil will think that they can change times and laws. Uh, and of course, the entire situation with what they're doing with their kids. And you know all the story. You know all the stories. You know all the information about, you know, what the GMI is doing. You know all the information about, you know, what they put in the food and the water, and the drag queen story times, the transgender stuff, the sex change operations for 6-year-olds, the lowering of the age of consent. That, you know, this started coming out several years ago, mostly in Britain, but then it migrated here, and it's all going to happen, folks. It's all going to happen, and it's going to happen fast. Well, because of that, uh, I figured that, you know, I probably ought to do a series on the whole thing with chastity and the concepts that most Christians and Jewish people and Muslims, for that matter, their sexual mores. And you'll say, "Oh, Roy, you sure spent a lot of time on that." Well, it's like I said, it's the first thing that got attacked in the Garden of Eden. Why? Because that is the foundation. People say, "Well, Jesus Christ is the foundation." Or no, no, the example of Jesus Christ is the foundation. Um, and the man woman relationship was right there in the front, and I've showed you how that the YHVH is a system that defines us. It's a system that defines us. And if you haven't caught on to that when I've given those explanations, go back in my religion series there, and you'll pick it up. It is the holy name, but it's the description of the family. that we belong to. And that family is being attacked relentlessly now by very evil forces. You could say demonic, you could say other dimensions, you could say Luciferian, the devil, Satan, whatever. The point is, it's in our face, it's manifestly happening right now. Oh yeah, I'm not even gonna say his name, Bill Romansky. He's a very sick puppy. Okay, I'll just say that, very sick puppy. I could have him arrested very easily, but frankly, I don't take the time. You know, he's going to sink himself, and that's fine with me. Um, okay, so I'm gonna do a short series on that. This whole thing with James having been a lifelong Nazarite. The Apostle James, the brother of Jesus, and they say that Jesus was celibate and all that. Well, I think that's all incorrect. There's a difference between chastity and sexual celibacy. There's a big difference between the two, and the way the ancient world looked at sexual abstinence, and as I've explained, circumcision. The Romans figured that circumcision was making you a eunuch. Well, of course, it's not really what it's doing, but that was how it was perceived by the Romans. Well, the same thing goes with chastity. They misunderstood the chastity, meaning that James and Jesus weren't, and I know people don't hear, Jesus wasn't married, Jesus didn't have sex. Well, okay, fine. If you don't want to talk about it, if that subject scares you, don't join the show. Go somewhere else, you know. But I'm going to talk about it because they're attacking it right now. They're attacking us. And the Christians in particular have been set up for this by the interpretations in the New Testament that aren't true. Okay? So, and it's not all about chastity in the sense that Christians and a lot of people think. So I'm going to get into that subject matter and show you that James was accused basically of being a lifelong celibate, that he died a virgin. And Epiphanius, I always have trouble with his name. I've heard it said Epiphanius, uh, Epiphanius. Anyway, that's a historian, and Epiphanius was involved in Epiphanius was involved in setting up the Council of Nicaea under Constantine, and directing things from there on. Anyway, he is really the one where the concept of James being a lifelong celibate comes from, and he calls him a virgin. Well, that's totally wrong. It shows you that even he didn't understand the Hebraic uses of the words. A man can't be a virgin. It just doesn't work, and it doesn't even go into the Greek as a male being a virgin. It just doesn't. It's not meant to be that way. So it's entirely incorrect. But it was because they were pushing the perpetual virginity of Mary and the celibacy of Jesus and James. Well, James was probably not. Yes, he practiced chastity in the sense that he wasn't promiscuous, and you could say the same for Jesus and his brothers. We already know that Jesus and James' brother Jude had two sons who were executed by the emperor in the 80s AD or 90s AD, somewhere in there. So they did have kids, and the thing is that they were trying to protect the royal line. The cup, as I explained, the cup of blood, really meant the bloodline. Dan Brown and his book, The Da Vinci Code, and of course Holy Blood, Holy Grail, and all of that is not far off. It really was about protecting the bloodline, and so they weren't really upfront about their progeny. They were trying to keep them hidden until they could secure their power, and then they would have brought them forward. As it ended up, most of the progeny, the descendants, the children and the grandchildren ended up having to leave because Rome was hunting them down. Rome even destroyed the temple that was built in Egypt. They destroyed that during the Bar Kokhba rebellion. Actually, just prior to that, it certainly finished it off then, and there was a temple in Egypt. Most people don't know that. There wasn't just one in Jerusalem. So at any rate, I'm going to get into that, I think, to show you that that really isn't the state of man to be celibate, and it's a good way to commit genocide. If you can convince people not to reproduce, they're going to die off. And there are all kinds of excuses for the celibacy. Oh, we don't want to propagate the fallen angel seed, so we just have to stop it on our own. There's nothing in the Torah, there's nothing anywhere that says that you're supposed to do that, and quite the contrary. Okay, Noah was a Zadok. He had children. Zadok meaning a righteous one, a pious one, like James was. Um, if the very best of the people refuse to have children, the fact of the matter is that the human race will die. It will become it'll be debased, and only evil will reign. So it makes absolutely no sense that that would have been. As a matter of fact, it's not scriptural. It's not in the Torah, and the way that the things have been explained about James and Jesus really came out of the idea, I think, of trying to protect, as I said, the descendants, number one, and the wives for that matter, and also because the Christology that was developing in the late first century. And then on through the third, demanded this celibacy and virginity, virginity on the part of the women, particularly Mary, so that they could formulate and promulgate that particular idea of religion. People will say, "Well, Roy, you're blaspheming the Holy Mother." No, I'm not. I'm not at that at all. I'm saying you need to question that entire scenario, and you don't have to get the answer. Demanding an answer when you're trying to study these types of historical things, and especially in the scriptures. I've already explained how Isaiah was talking about the virgin will conceive. A virgin is a woman who's not had a firstborn child yet. It's going to happen, and they're still technically a virgin because they've had their firstborn child. That's the definition. It's a Bethula. It's not that they've never had the relationship. But at any rate, that's all a whole nother thing. Where I'll end on this tonight is, and I am going to do a little bit more on this subject matter. Seeing the Virgin Mary potato chip, is it blasphemy? I don't know. Look, Homer Cobb, I'm going to tell you this right now, okay? You use the New Testament to justify what the Romans had written in there, and you're making a big mistake. Okay? Josephus, for instance, talks about, I'm going to tell you a little story about Josephus. Matter of fact, I think I'll read it to you. You'll remember the story about Jesus going to the temple and teaching the rabbis there, right? They were asking him questions, and they were amazed at his understanding. You know where that story came from? I'm going to read it to you. It's from the life of Flavius Josephus. And it's in number 2, Life of Flavius Josephus 2. And I'm going to read this to you. And they took this and they used it to write the story about Jesus at the temple when he was 12 years old. Listen to this. You can't depend. I'm just being upfront about it, okay? I love the Gospels. They teach some very wonderful things, but you can't use them to prove your point. You can't, because they're suspect. And here's an example. Life of Flavius Josephus 2. Moreover, when I was a child and about 14 years of age, I was commended by all for the love I had to learning, on which account the high priests and principal men of the city came then frequently to me together in order to know my opinion about the accurate understanding of points of the Torah. What? That's exactly the story of Jesus at the temple at that age. I will take the New Testament Gospels and the epistles and all those letters and all that stuff, and I will bounce it against whether it follows reasonably the Torah and the historical record. I'm not going to use the Gospels to prove the Gospels. And you shouldn't either. Okay? I'll just leave it at that. Now, on this subject of why I am so adamant that we get back and we really understand and appreciate how God made us as men and women and how important that relationship is to the continuation not only of the human beings in general, but of your particular individual salvation. And it is dependent on this. And it's not the idea of, oh, if I have sex, then I'm going to hell. No, that's not it at all. No. I want you to do something for me. I'm going to give you one scripture tonight. One scripture. I'm going to tell you again. The only place that any type of celibacy is discussed at all, and it's not really celibacy, it's abstinence, is in the Rechabite Nazarites. Okay? That's where it is. And it talks about not drinking wine when you do ordinances in the temple. Not that you abstain from wine forever. Not that it's like that story the other day I was talking about David, where it says, the king is not to multiply horses to himself. Does that mean he can only have one horse? Well, it was the same thing with the wine. You can't drink wine. Well, it meant you can't drink wine when you're doing the sacrificial atonement ordinances in the temple. That's what it's talking about. It's not saying you can't have it at all. But the Rechabites, as a family, agreed to a more stringent application of the law. It was never required by God. It was done by the family itself, and it was way overboard. And if you don't know the story, then you start thinking that that's required of you, and it is not. It is not. So, there's a disagreement on whether the Song of Solomon is or should be in the New Testament, because it's quite sensual actually when you read it. And so what the puritanical theologians did, because they really wanted that in there because of Solomon, of course, they said, well, it's an allegory of God, particularly Christ and the church. And I'm telling you that's not true. You can look at it that way. I mean, we talk about the bride of Christ and all that, which is interesting. Why does Jesus use the concept of a sexual relationship to define his relationship with the church, with the people? Okay? So, okay, you can take the Song of Solomon for that, but I'm telling you that's really not what it is. Okay? It's really not. I'm going to give you another one. And it's not in the Song of Solomon. It's in Proverbs. So this is your assignment for the night, and until we get into the subject matter deeply, if you want to. And you all let me know in the comments section if you want to talk about this. If you don't, well, okay. I'm forcing myself to do these live streams. I hope you understand that. I'm really not in the mood. But Felicia and Bettina are kicking my ass, okay? They're kicking my ass. Proverbs 5, verses 18 to 23. I want you to read that. Proverbs 5, 18 to 23. And we could talk about a lot more. But God made us in his image, male and female, and, all that. Stop denigrating what you are. Realize that this is a gift. It needs to be approached with responsibility, with love, with devotion. You don't want to be promiscuous, because when you do that, the people that depend on you for these feelings of love and deep appreciation and even pleasure, when you betray them, you open them up to depression, sadness, desperation, and they can even get sick. Read what it says about how a man should treat his wife. It even says, ravish her, ravish your wife. So go read it. That's the real situation. Why did God command in Exodus that the men were not to approach their wives for 3 days prior to him coming down to appear before them on Mount Sinai? If you read that story, well, it's very simple. It had nothing to do with the act of sex that was bad. It had to do with, as I explained before, despite what everybody talks about, it's like being in a classroom. If you're playing with the girl in the seat next to you instead of listening to the teacher, you're not going to get the message. You're not going to learn the lesson. And God wanted those men to have undivided attention to what he was going to tell them. So that's your assignment. Go read Proverbs 5. And those of you who are prudish and puritanical and, you know, you shake and you get all nervous because, you know, over this whole subject matter, well, here you go. Okay? Here you go. And it's in the Hebrew language as well. It's in the language. It's in the YHVH. So that's all I've got. Please, I need you, Mr. Potter. Ask around and find out how I am. Huh? I'm not sure I understand what you want there. Please pray for Mama Bear and Papa Bear's health. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with them, but yeah, if you know that, yeah, certainly do that. Okay, I don't know what you're talking about, Cobb. I'm sorry, I don't. Yeah, you were to remind me of something, and you already forgot, and so did I. I told you. I'm a basket case still. I'm still a basket case on this one. Yeah, I am. And you'd think if I was so well versed in Scripture and in the concept of the deity and all that, that these types of things wouldn't bother me. Well, even Jesus said he wanted the cup to pass from him, right? If you read that, yeah, yeah, yeah. So this is big stuff. Who's winning? Not us. We're not winning. And I really get tired of Alex Jones. Yeah, I still tune in to see where he's going, and that he's a watchman on the wall who can't blow his trumpet correctly. He just can't because he has something. He's tied into Trump somehow, and he doesn't want to lose that access. So, Mama Bear, Papa Bear, yeah, I don't know what's wrong. I hope whatever your problem is, I hope you get well. Okay. I don't know if he's compromised emergency exit. That he grew so fast and he's trying to become a big thing, and he already is big. Yeah. David Knight is much more. I listen to David Knight every morning. Yeah, I do. And David Knight has a common sense approach, and he's not on there to entertain you. He's in there to inform you and educate you, and that's good. That's what we need. Yeah, we did bomb. Well, we didn't bomb Iran. What we did, not that, at least not the last time I checked. Um, they bombed Iranian positions on the Syrian-Iraqi border, saying that they were a headquarters for drone operations. Our government lies as a matter of course. You can't believe a damn thing they tell you. Okay, this is about destroying. This is to set up the destruction of mankind. Remember, I told you in a video some time ago about forcing prophecy, that even the early Christians did that, so-called Christians. When after James was killed, they used Daniel to calculate the 7 years. That's what they did. And they had 3.5 years in when the daily sacrifice was taken away. What daily sacrifice was taken away? To the emperor, the Roman emperor. All right. So nothing is as it seems, not even your holy Bible. It's not what it seems. And you've got to be careful with. Do not use the gospels to prove your gospel understanding. I could sit down and give you a class on all of the contradictions in the synoptics, in John and in the epistles, and their contradictions and their reversals. Okay? But it's really not efficacious, because I'm not trying to destroy anybody's faith. I'm trying to say you need to ask the questions. There are problems, and you're not addressing them because we've had 2,000 years of misinformation and disinformation by institutions that were more concerned about their existence than about the truth. Yeah, no, I agree, negotiator. That's what I do. It's funny. You're telling me I need to do it. How do you know I don't already do that? And ask for peace be with you. Yeah, I do. And sometimes God doesn't want you to be comfortable. Sometimes He doesn't want you to be comfortable. AI will turn out to be the Antichrist. Definitely used by it. Whether it's an, I mean, essentially what we're seeing is exactly what happened in the war in heaven. That a created thing wanted to become God, not God's children. This created thing wasn't God's children, the sons and daughters of God. That's not who it was. It talks about the Elohim and the B'nai Elohim and all that, but it's really this created being who succored God's children to follow Him, and we're seeing that played out on the earth right now in real time. So you're actually right, but who is the person I think that's going to stand up and be the personification of that? Roy, just trying. Oh no, I understand. I understand, negotiator. Just trying to heal and make your pain go away. Oh, I understand. But God wants me to feel this. Okay, I've already asked Him to help me with it, and it's not going away. And it's because there's a message here. And I think Felicia knows what it is. Okay? Um, I think she may not know what the answer is, but she knows that this thing that's going on inside of me is a necessary situation. Loretta, you shouldn't even trust me. Again, let me point this out, Loretta. Okay, you're saying, Roy, please teach us at this time. We need to know the truth. So many of us trust things that were false. I don't want to tell you that what I say is the truth. What I'm trying to do is open up your mind so that you ask the questions so that you can discover the truth. If I tell you what the truth is, I'm no better than a televangelist. I'm no better than this guy Paul, this so-called apostle Paul that I have no trust for. And there are problems with James. I've even told you that in my study of the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Eisenman series and the letter of James in the New Testament and Acts where it talks about James and his counsel not to eat things sacrificed to idols and abstain from fornication and blood, all those things. In my book, The Crimson Thread, I don't buy either side 100%. Okay? I think something else is going on there. I don't trust James 100%. I don't trust Paul at all, but I don't trust James 100% because at least not the way he's been presented to us, both in Josephus, which I just read. Well, I didn't read that, but the idea that he took these. Let me read it to you. Let me read to you what Josephus says about. He calls him Banus, but we're pretty sure that this is James. Let me read this to you. I need my glasses again. Hold on. But my point is I'm trying to get you to to be courageous enough to ask the questions. I'm putting seeds in you, not to destroy your faith, but to get you to understand what your faith is. To ask the questions, the right questions, so that you can get the proper answers, and hopefully on your own. And I'm giving you some of the information. And some people say, well, yeah, Roy, you're guiding the conversation so people will find out what you want them to find out. Well, I guess that's somewhat true, but my motivation isn't that. My motivation is the same thing like I said before. You know, the story about and maybe I should read that, but I think I'm gonna, no, I'm not going to read it tonight. About when Jesus was asked the question by the Sadducees, right? A woman has a husband, and the husband dies, and then the next man marries her, and the next man, the next man, the next man. And in the resurrection, who does she belong to? Well, first of all, the Sadducees didn't believe in a resurrection, so their question is really wholly without foundation. Number one. Number two, they're making fun of some Maccabean heroes. That was the whole point of their attack here. Not they didn't even care about the situation of the woman and the men. They were trying to make fun of Maccabean heroes, and there's a story of Maccabees about it. And Jesus recognized this, at least the stories that came in there. I think this one's probably accurate. And basically what he's telling them is that the fallen angels don't get a resurrection. Okay? And that in this particular situation where they're trying to trap him in this question, the whole purpose of Levirate marriage, when a man dies and leaves his wife childless, his brother is supposed to marry her and raise up children to his brother. So the whole answer to the question is she belongs to the first husband. And it says so in the Torah. And that's why he says, you do err, you do greatly err. You do not understand the power of God, for in the resurrection he's talking to them, will neither marry nor give her in marriage. There's no male and female, and they are as the angels in heaven. Well, the key to that is, what are the angels in heaven like? Well, they're different kinds. But you weren't made to be an androgynous, sexless being even in heaven. Sorry. And if that's what you want to be, you're going to be like the Nephilim. You're going to be like Lucifer, sexless, androgynous. That's not what you were created to be. That's what Lucifer was created to be, not you. Let me read this. So, this is our first indication in history that if this is James, and it probably is, we're looking at it, and most scholars agree that this is probably James by another name. Things in history, sometimes it gets garbled as you translate and transliterate between languages, Hebrew and Greek, and back and forth, and Aramaic and stuff. These types of things can happen. Let me read this to you. And just figure that this name Banus is James, okay, just for our conversation here. But nor did I content myself with these trials only, but when I was informed, this is Josephus again, okay, I'm in Josephus. But when I was informed that one whose name was Banus lived in the desert and used no other clothing than grew upon trees, and had no other food than what grew of its own accord, and bathed himself in cold water frequently, both night and day, in order to preserve his chastity, I imitated him in those things and continued with him for 3 years. Well, we've all heard the thing about, when a guy sees a gorgeous girl, he's got to go take a cold shower, right? The funny thing about this is, the reason why James bathed several times a day is the Essenes did that anyway. That's how they maintained their bodily purity, so they could get ready to welcome the heavenly hosts in their war against the Kittim, the Romans, and the Herodians. That's really what that was all about, trying to get the heavenly hosts to stay with them so they could have this special weapon to defeat their enemies. That's really what they were doing. Well, so James says to Josephus, well, I'm taking these baths because, I'm really highly sexed. It's really what he's saying. And I need to calm down because, I can't go see my wife. She can't come into camp because we're a warrior camp, et cetera, whatever. I mean, there are lots of reasons here, but I want to point out something. They didn't want to take warm baths because they thought warm baths caused you to become more sexually active, because they were watching the Romans in their baths. They had those hot baths, the Roman baths they're called, and the Herodians had them too. and they saw all this sexual promiscuity going around there, and they just assumed that it was because of the hot baths that it was calling it. Well, I don't know about you, but I get in a hot tub, and almost I mean, there could be a hot chick in there, and about the last thing I'm thinking of, because I'm too worn out, is sex. Okay, so that reasoning that James had was deficient. He had never apparently thought about it that way. So, like I said, there's some problems with James. And I told you already, his abstention from meat, his vegetarianism, that was somewhat Rechabite in nature. Yeah, going back to Eden, not eating animals. Yeah. But he ate a fish that he thought wasn't produced by sexual reproduction, and the fact is it was. He didn't know he was eating something that was. Okay, and there are more things like that. There are just tons of things like that. They didn't have an answer for everything. They despite the fact that we have this concept that these early apostles walked and talked with God every day and got every answer that they ever asked about. That just isn't the case. It isn't the case whatsoever. So, at any rate, yeah. So, I know I'm getting into some really crazy stuff here, but so anyway, there you go, Loretta. Again, I want you to learn how to ask the right questions. That's what's really important. The answers aren't even as important as being able to ask the right questions, and that's really what I'm trying to do. Yeah, I don't trust any man. I don't care who they are, especially Trump. Don't trust him. He's not going to save you. Loretta, you're very welcome. You're very welcome. Okay, man, we've been going for an hour, and I didn't mean it to go this long. So I'll go ahead and leave. We'll approach this subject for those who want to. I'm not saying that you shouldn't guard yourself, that you shouldn't practice sexual responsibility, that you shouldn't, the free love idea that you should have. That's not what I'm saying. And if you read Proverbs 5, like I just advised you to, you can ravish your husband or your wife. And that pleasure, there's nothing wrong with it. It's encouraged. It's encouraged. Again, the high priest, the Levite priest, could drink wine if they wanted to, but not when they were involved in the actual sacrifices of the temple, doing the atonement sacrifices and those things. Then they couldn't. Well, that makes sense. You don't want to have a drunk priest up there, not knowing what he's doing and saying the wrong words or whatever. And I've talked about, the economics of the thing, that another reason why they didn't eat meat sacrificed to idols is because the lower priests, got paid in those sacrifices. It was an economic decision. Let's say somebody brings a calf up there and you slaughter the calf. It's like a barbecue. I hate that this is very sacred, but at the same time, it's economic. So what they would do is they would divide the calf, all right? The blood and the fat went to God. That was nice of him, wasn't it? He takes the bad parts, really, is what he's doing, and a couple of other things. Well, the priest would take one half of it, or a shank or whatever, depending upon what animal it was and all that, and then the rest would go back to the people that brought the sacrifice, and then they could eat that as a meal. Well, see, the priests are getting paid to feed their families. They're getting the food to pay their families. So that's really what's going on there. So when James is saying you shouldn't eat meat sacrificed to idols, what he's saying is not just that it's kind of a blasphemous thing to do that in his mind, but what it's really coming back to is that you're not taking care of the priests. They're not getting their food to feed their families. That's really what it comes back to. That's really what it was all about. Oh, come on, John Kofelt. Look at all the things that Trump is doing right now. I mean, there are people on YouTube and on Twitter that think that he's going to be the next salvation. What do you mean because he ain't president? There are people that think he is president. Where have you been, John? You're the one that's got to figure out what's happening. I'm not saying that Trump's going to get back in there, but there are people that think that he's still president or that he's going to get back in August. Hell, even General Flynn, who I no longer trust. and I haven't for quite some time, is going down that road. Okay. Yeah, Mrs. Cat, lots of loud. Trump and Biden want you vaccinated. Yeah, exactly. They're both on the same page. Trump comes out and said, "Oh, it's not good for kids now." Well, it's not good for anybody. And I shouldn't have said that because that'll probably get me thrown off. Thanks. Thanks. Gee, thanks. Trump isn't gone. He may not come back, but he's gone. He has a lot of influence. He put his hands on the Palantir in Saudi Arabia with the president of Egypt and the king of Saudi Arabia. That was very significant. If you don't know about the covenant with many, if you don't understand the idea of the Palantir and the all-seeing eye, you don't know what's going on. Okay? He's not gone. He's not. He's very much involved behind the scenes, and I'm not sure what's going to happen here. People that follow me know that I'm very suspicious of him, and rightly so. Remember, he was holding up the LGBTQ flag, and look where we are today. Trump is an enemy. Oh yes, he is. Trump is an enemy to you and to the human race right now. To all mankind, he is absolutely 100%. He is an enemy to all of us. Okay, I'm done. Y'all take care. Thanks for coming again. I'm surprised I've even been able to talk as well as I have tonight. If you consider this talking well, at least I didn't lose my train of thought too many times or get emotional. I almost did once, but I got back. Yeah, I think Trump is our executioner too. He's not our savior. He's our executioner. All right, we're out of here. We'll see y'all later. Take care.